I promise you all have never seen an action film like this ever. Along with that and a lot more, let's jump into my review of the new film, Thelma. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel today for another review. And today we're going to be reviewing the new film Thelma, which comes to theaters June 21st. So this film, very honestly, was not on my radar, but I had somebody reach out and say, hey, you should check this film out. And I was like, cool, I'll get to it. And then they told me, like, hey, did you check it out? You might want to check it out. And I knew at that moment, I was like, okay, let me see what's up with this film. And I'm here to tell you all and to echo those same sentiments that you want to check this film out. You want to go out the way to check this film out because this may be one of my favorite films of the year. And I think, you know, for all of the production, acting, and all that to make it such a good film, it just has such good heart. And I tell you right now, anybody who either has an amazing relationship with their grandmother or has had a good relationship with their grandmother, get your tissues ready. There's going to be a lot in this film that you will connect with on just those points alone. And for the folks who may not have had a good relationship with their grandmother, there's still so much that this film offers, and in fact, I think it's a lot of things within this film that you may actually want to sort of bring into your own life and sort of just start your own new traditions in your family, or even create good relationships in your family that may not have been there. Because, you know, I say this all the time, grandmothers are the anchors of the family. These are the folks who's had who has seen some things over time, but truly their wisdom is the glue that keeps everything together. So for the folks who now their grandmother has passed, you feel that absence because no one would ever replace your grandmother because of just how important they were. And then honestly, you just see, like, whether it's the cooking, the messages, like just those moments in life that you'll just never forget. Like you hold them forever. And this film really does channel a lot of that. And, to really help you understand exactly why, it's because my writer-director and Josh Margolin, this is absolutely a love letter to his grandmother. And while that is a very key point to the film, it also does take a very clever spin on action films. In fact, Mission Impossible happens to be like a very important point of this film that really takes the adventure to where it goes. So Tom Cruise is definitely the secondary inspiration to everything that happens in this film, which is interesting because you can only imagine that Josh and his grandmother both love for cinema, obviously with Josh now being a filmmaker, probably look back at moments with his grandmother watching Tom Cruise and realizing, like, okay. Or it could be on the other opposite side of the coin, where this actually could have been a story that his grandma actually did, and that would be even more wild. But with that being said, there's so much more to cover with this film. First of all, our star, our lead, the legendary June Squibb, she is Thelma. Now, let me just, in case you don't know what June has been up to as of recently. First of all, Inside Out 2 just recently released. She is nostalgia in it, and those are some of the funniest moments in that film. And then she's also done some previous voice acting in the adult animated series Velma, which she is credited as older woman. I'll bring up Velma because Thelma, and I was like, that's clever. That is clever. But talking about this film is about Thelma, 93-year-old Thelma, who I would assume at the time June was 93, she's 94 now, was a victim of a scammer who had called to pretend that her grandson had been In some situation, I don't need to get into all the detail. I don't want to spoil anything for you all. But with that, it's her grandson. So, of course, she's going to jump, leaps and bounds in order to ensure that her grandson gets what he needs. And with this scam, she realizes that she had did something wrong because the family comes together and realize like, oh wait, this is bad, and on one end, they go to the authorities. Authorities don't do anything because these things happen so often, and also trying to get back to the person who did so is typically a tricky task. But that's no here nor there for Thelma, because Thelma says, okay, cool, that's not going to sit well with me. And Thelma decides to rally up and get out there and get her money back. Yeah, she had to go hit up her homie Ben, who's played by Richard Roundtree. Like, come on now, June and Richard together in an action film. Like, I don't care whatever you're doing. Right there alone should be like, what am I about to watch? And you're going to have such a fun time on just them two alone. And then to talk more about the family, Thelma's daughter is Gail, played by one of my favorites in Parker Posey. And she is related. She is married to Alan, played by Gregg. So Parker and Clark right there is another interesting dynamic that you're just like, well, how do you write for them? They're so good at what they do. They've been doing it for so long that I would imagine that they kind of give them a canvas and kind of give instructions in terms of what they want to be drawn, and then they just go out there and do it. Like, these two they're vets at this point, and so you would imagine just how they can riff off of each other and the improv, like the magic that they create, and they absolutely deliver. And then the most important relationship in this film is Thelma and Daniel. Daniel is her grandson, played by Fred Hechinger. I can't stress enough, for anybody who has a strong bond with their grandmother or once had a strong bond with their grandmother, you're going to see it displayed in the most authentic way. And again, because, and just to kind of give you a little bit more detail, like even staying through the credits, Josh has a scene that is certainly his grandmother in the car, which happens to be a scene in the film, so you can obviously tell the inspiration in terms of why that scene was put in the film. But like understanding that how much his grandma meant to him, you knew if there was one thing that this film needed to get right, was going to be that grandson grandmother relationship. And June and Fred, they put magic together on screen because it feels so authentic. And for me, it's a little bit emotional because you tend to let your mind drift to moments with your grandmother. The funny moments, the frustrating moments, the moments where you're just like, come on, grandma, you can't do that, and you're not going to ever be able to remove elder wisdom. And grandma and her determination, nothing was going to stop her, especially when it comes down to her grandbaby. So like, you watch the film, you enjoy it, you have your laughs, you have even moments where you could be pissed. I mean, first thing for me, anybody who does anything to elders and children are like the worst of the worst. So the fact that the film really starts off with the emotions of the grandmother, Thelma, trying to do something right for her grandson and then ultimately be falling victims of scam, you're like, all right, well, who are those scammers? Because I'm ready to go get them. Like, forget all that. Forget all this movie stuff. I'm about to go get them because it's just not right. And June does just such a fantastic job, and then really being that baby face. You see the emotions and everything she's feeling about, like, I was scammed, but I was just trying to do the right thing. And what do I do? How do I make this right? Like, I feel like I disappointed others. I've disappointed myself. Like, all those sorts of things are like really driven through this character. And for somebody like myself, and hopefully you too, you don't want nothing happening to elders. So you're just like, yeah, I don't like that. So you start to feel those emotions. And that's what I'm saying. Like, this film gives you so much. And then it's still an action film, so you have a lot of good moments where, don't get it twisted, at 93, Thelma ain't playing around. And when she got her sidekick in Ben, which they have their history, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. But, you know, she needs Ben because Ben has the only vehicle that they can get around on. That happens to be an electric scooter. So that's how they whipping. They whipping an electric scooter to go get that money back. And, you know, Ben is the road dog to Thelma and vice versa. So when it comes down to something not being right, they're going to do what they got to do, you know? Meanwhile, Ben is missing because you can't just leave out of her senior home without anybody knowing. And Thelma's just doing whatever she got to do to get it done. So, like, yeah, you know, there's a little bit of a concern of her also being a missing person because the family can't find her. So again, with this film, you get a lot, man. You get some really good organic relationships with these characters. Obviously, the acting backs that. You're going to have moments that really, really hits you in the feels because whether it's a point of nostalgia or a point of just currently where you're just like understanding how important your relationship with your grandmother may be, or the moments that y'all have had together, the adventures that y'all may have had together, like the conversations, even the frustrating aspect to this is like, we all got those relatives who are just so disconnected from technology and they need your help for everything, whether it's their passwords, how do they get to a website, what's the email, how do you download this, you know, they hit all of that. So like, I love how very intentional the script is with the dialogue, because there's so many of those moments where you're just like, you have to do this for the character, but yet I know you're frustrated because you had to endure this in your life, because we've all had to go through that. It's just like, your password can't be password, you know what I mean? But they do all of that, and it just provides such a fun time from beginning to end. And there's, I keep telling you, there's so much with this film. From the elder standpoint too, like, you know, there's conversations about the fear of aging and, you know, being alone and your mind not being as sharp as it once being, your body is not cooperating in the way it used to. So those conversations all come about too, and those hit you in the feels, because even being younger, you start to think like, what is it going to look like when I get older? You know, will I have those same thoughts and same experiences and whatnot? And we could be sharp as I don't know what right now, but at some point, you know, everyone has a time to go. And I think that they do tackle a lot of that. And then they counter it with some inspiration. Like, there's a very, very important conversation pretty early in the film where Thelma is talking to Daniel and she says, hey, what is that animal that always lands on their feet? And I, just like Daniel said, I was like, well, cat. And she was like, well, yeah, but also humans do too. And I think, like, thinking about what that message means, and then you start to think about things that your grandparents have told you, and you're just like, I see why that means so much now. It may have been kind of silly then, or you might have been a little bit disconnected then, but like now as an adult, you really start to understand. And like, to kind of tap a little bit more about Daniel, like, Daniel doesn't have it all put together. He's trying to figure out this dating life, but he's also trying to like get back on his feet, and like, you know, his motivation needs to kind of get into gear, so that he could be a better person for his partner. Like, he, for by all means, personality, he's there, but like, there's more to that in terms of like companionship, and he needs to kind of figure that out a little bit. And grandma has always been there for him while he supports grandma and grandma supports him. It's still a measure of them two having a safe space with one another to have these conversations, and both of their respective fears at the time. So like, they hit all of that. That's why I'm saying, like, this film is really such a breath of fresh air, because it's a totally different style of action film. And yes, they have some iconic shots, you know, the shots of walking away from something that's getting ready to explode and fire in the background. They give you all of that. So like, there's fun, there's a little bit of you know, some fight choreography, some little, you know, little moments in there, whatnot. But yeah, there's great dialogue, there's humor. There's moments again that maybe a little scary for you to kind of discuss in terms of the dialogue. Like, they really do. They nail it to a T. And I think it's hard to get this wrong when you know that Josh and how important this story was for him. And even when you see that credit scene where you realize, like, yeah, this was a passion project that had to get done. It had to be right. You had some great actors on board. You have the legendary June at lead here. You know, how could this go wrong? And it doesn't. It really, really, really doesn't. So, like, sure, there's some moments that is little high pace, middle gets a little slow at times, and then the end really brings it home. But I think across the board, you're getting a solid film that you don't want to miss. Man, you got to check out Thelma. It is in theaters June 21st. Folks, once you do, check it out. Come in the comments. Let me know your thoughts about this one. Tell me I got this one right. Like, tell me like this was a great recommendation, because I got to say, for somebody who almost missed this would have been a huge regret. Huge regret. But yeah, check it out. Let me know in the comments your thoughts about this once you do. And as always, stick around for more reviews very soon.